And welcome back to my channel and welcome to my best books of 2025. I read such a weird mixed bag of books in 2025, probably because my reading was more limited because of my new job and moving and life and just everything in general, but I did not have many 5 stars. I think I had less than 10 5 stars in total. So some of these books aren't even books I gave 5 stars to. They were just the ones that I enjoyed, and I can feel myself recommending them over and over again over the last year. Now, I always leave this video to film in January as opposed to in December, because normally there's a book that like crops up in December and it's the best book that I've read all year, and there's just something about reading at Christmas that just relaxes my brain. That didn't happen this year. I read one book in December and it was fine. I started a whole bunch that were great, but they're more likely to be great books for 2026 now as opposed to 2025, because just wasn't as relaxed as I could have been. I actually spent most of my Christmas break writing and exploring Wales and just generally hanging out with my family and recouping from a very, very stressful term at school. So yeah, reading was weird. But I think as a whole, as a collective, we could agree that 2025 was quite weird. So that tracks. These are my 10 favourites of 2025. I always stick to 10. I never try and go over 10. I like to kind of condense it down and really let you know that these books are absolutely worth your time to pick up. So, starting with one I think we can all assume was going to be in this list, we have A Heart Full of Hatred, which was the most recent Derek Landy release. He has had another one of his like novellas released, which is like one of the spin-off additional stories of the Skullduggery Pleasant series, but this is the second in the most recent trilogy, and the newest one is coming out I think in either March or April. I cannot remember. I will leave it here and let you know. Now, I generally try not to include sequels in my best books of the year, if only because I want to be able to recommend to you the books so that you can go and pick them up and stuff. I do think it's absolutely worth digging into what I think is now 25 books in this series, because Skullduggery Pleasant, the way Derek Landy writes, is just spectacular, and it doesn't matter what age you are, they'll traumatize you in the best possible way. You will have so much fun meeting these characters. So I cannot tell you anything about this book specifically without it spoiling stuff for the earlier books, but just know it was brilliant. It was 5 stars. I had so much fun with it, and I am so freaking excited for the next one, because I don't know what I will do when Derek Landy retires. That's a lie. I do know what I'll do. I will just restart the series again and again and again. Like, this is my comfort series. I adore it. It's brilliant and it's so much fun. Would recommend. I picked up T. Kingfisher's What Moves the Dead this year, and then proceeded to read What Feasts at Night immediately afterwards. And I've got the deep one. I cannot remember what the title is. Again, I will leave that here, which is the 3rd one in this trilogy to look forward to for 2026, and I'm so excited about it. What Moves the Dead is essentially a historical Last of Us story. It is based on the House of Usher, I believe. So you have these people kind of meeting in this house, people are sick, weird mushrooms are growing everywhere, and it's like this almost like zombie story, but like really well crafted. Considering it's a novella, it's a very quick read. The narrator is hilarious. They are non-binary. They are back from war. I really liked the world building around being this soldier, this sworn sword, and also like how they interact with their friends. The butler is hilarious. Like, there's really like nice jovial moments, and then there's a kind of like more insidious side to it. This is not nearly as dark as like their other books such as The Twisted Ones or The Hollow Places, nor is it as like jovial and light and like whimsical as like Thornhedge or A Sorcerer's Crucible. It kind of lives in that grey area. And it is fascinating to me that T. Kingfisher can have such a spectrum of writing, that their range seems to know no bounds, because they're writing in genres that they clearly enjoy. They understand the tropes really well. It's really well crafted. It's just fun. It's just fun. So 10 out of 10 would recommend this one as well. I'm gonna need a new catchphrase, because I feel like I've been relying on 10 out of 10 would recommend for about 10 years now. But I would recommend it, and I do think it's a 10 out of 10. Okay, next is the Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. If you follow me on Instagram, you will know that I've recently bought the sequel to this, which is a Golden Boy's Guide to Bipolar. What I really liked about this one is the mixture of like LGBT, BIPOC, and disability rep, like that mental health rep. You've got this main character who is just trying to fit in. She's moved to a new school, she's avoiding her old school and her old friends because she was outed at her old school in a really cruel way, and she fears being outed in this new school. And rather than it just being like a story of her coming out and exploring who she is as an LGBT person, it is more about her falling in love with someone she wishes she wouldn't fall in love with, and this other person like clearly being into them as well, but her not being able to read the signs. And isn't that not just the most relatable thing you've ever heard of in your life? Like, it was just so wholesome and fun and sweet, and it really handled the mental health and LGBT stuff with like real care. It really felt like the author wanted to like hug you as you read this book, and it was just warming and just charming and again like really fun to read. You cringe when she cringes, you sigh when she sighs, like it's just lovely. And I think this writing I would compare to a warm hug. It's just really nice. And I think considering I read this shortly after reading Felix Ever After, where the tropes were very similar, there was just something about this that worked better for me. And I think if you like Felix Ever After, you should absolutely give this one a go, because even though it doesn't look at trans rep, it looks at being a lesbian. I do think there's a lot there that can be taken that's like really positive and charming. You don't need to have like accidental sexual assault for it to like end with the couple that you want it to end with, which is what happened in Felix Ever After and immediately turned me off that book. So yes, I adored this book. It was so lovely. And normally if I'm like, oh, that book's nice, like that's where it stops, like my kind of praise for it kind of ends. But genuinely, just a warm hug of a book. Like, yeah, really good. Whatever the opposite of a warm hug, Come and Get It is a... How do I describe Come and Get It? How do I describe Come and Get It? Come and Get It is an authentic, realistic portrayal of women with their finances and looking at how people in general, like it's very female-centric, which I adore, but how people in general will manipulate and cajole to get what they want without any understanding of what those consequences and the knock-on effects of that will be. So Come and Get It is essentially following several main characters, but two perspectives specifically, which one of them is a professor who is studying how students manage their finances whilst also teaching creative writing. And another is a young woman who is trying to save up to buy this house that she's been like looking after. And they end up in a relationship which is massively inappropriate and normally would massively trigger me as well. But again, they just stumble into it. It felt really raw and authentic and wasn't triggering in the way I was expecting it to be. And they aren't good for each other. They're not helping each other, but they are working together. And both of them have an ulterior motive. One of them, she's being paid to give information about other students, and one of them is actively studying these students for her book, which in itself is like incredibly problematic. And then you have the students in the dorm that are kind of caught up in their romance because of it. And like one of them, there are like trigger warnings for like suicide ideation and self-harm. She is immediately impacted because she had this like really traumatic thing happen to her. She was cast out of her last university. She's come to this new one. She clearly has like a shopping addiction. She is like bullied by her flatmates, and she desperately wants to be on this creative writing course, and she gets rejected because this woman has like this whole thing entangled. And then the consequences of that are really fascinating. Like they're really interesting, and it's not a happy ending. Like it's not clean and clear cut. You know, the consequences come knocking eventually, and it's really interesting to see how these like personal independent stories, like I love a character analysis. I love this kind of like deep dive into personal issues and how we kind of explore that through problematic behavior. Like, these are really messy characters. But isn't that just fun? Because you're not a messy person, the character's the messy person, and if you relate to them, well, you're still better than they are. Like, it's that kind of catharsis, and it's just really good. It's really good. This one, again, immediate 5 stars just for its crafting. Now, I did not love Such a Fun Age. I found that a really difficult read, and I found like the plot twist of why the woman had done the things she had done to women of colour, etc., what her problem with them was, really basic and not kind of like finely crafted. This, I felt like, actually, the white women are terrible and they don't need redeeming for being terrible. And that's okay. Some white women are just terrible. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. I cannot remember if this arc was sent to me by Olivia or if it was one that I found in a charity shop, but I'm really glad that I picked it up. It was great. Okay, don't ask me why I don't have a slip jacket for this. I don't know where it is. When I started reading this, I thought it would be a really good idea to take the case off the book, because then I wouldn't like break it, because I have a tendency, like, whenever I read hardbacks, it tends to be that like the corners get torn, and I'm really bad for doing that with slipcases. So I thought, well, let's avoid that and I'll just take it off. And now I don't know where it is. And I've moved house since, so it is truly gone now. And that just is what it is. So we'll hold it up like this, because that's going to do nothing for you. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. Now, I know this has really divided opinions. I have seen some best books of 2025 with this on the list, and some worst lists with this one on. And actually, I think it's really interesting how divisive it's been. Now, if you are expecting a classic witchy story, leaning into horror, leaning into fantasy side of witchy, that's not what this is. This is a traumatizing, slow pull, slow burn of how difficult pregnancy is. Especially in a time and based on real events of how girls were forced into these convalescence homes and then had their babies taken away from them and sold into adoptions. That is based on real things that happened. Not just in the US, which is where this is set, but all over Europe, in the UK. I mean, there was a whole thing. There was like, I'm pretty sure Netflix has done a documentary on it. There is certainly a TV series that's coming out recently about it, about young women who worked as like laundresses whilst they were pregnant, like genuinely like doing hard labor whilst pregnant. And then when they've had their children, those children being used as like bribery tactics to keep them working. And then one day their baby's just going missing and being told their babies have died. And actually they've been sold on by the nuns. Like, that's crazy and real. Like, that happens. So to take that already horrific information and give just 4 of these women a chance through something like witchcraft and making it feel embedded in the real world. Like, are these things real? Is this in her head? That weird mix of like, is it psychological or is it supernatural? Really interesting. I really like the fact that I did not know if the magic was real or if they were just finding coping mechanisms to manage the trauma that they're experiencing. So it follows this group of girls who are sent to a home in Florida, middle of nowhere, no access to the outside world, and all they do is spend their days doing chores and smoking. And like, you can see where it's like historical. They don't really know to take care of their bodies. They see a doctor once a week and he is literally the worst, and he doesn't understand that morning sickness isn't something that you can just get over. They are fed these absolutely disgusting meals. They are in this incredibly patriarchal situation, and you discover that actually the woman that's like running the situation actually does understand, could empathize, and chooses not to. Is really dark. And like, again, it's messy women just coping. And that was like my whole vibe for 2025, was just messy women coping. Now, I have a real love-hate relationship with Grady Hendrix. I have adored books like this and Horror Store, top tier, 5 stars, loved. And then I have hated some of his other books. I hated the Final Girl support group, like the misogyny, the ableism, all of it, yuck. I've been warned away Southern Book Club's Guide for Killing Vampires because of the racism, ugh. I have been recently gifted my best friend's Exorcism, so I do want to try that one. And Gavin mentioned in his Gavin Reads It All Best Books of the Year that he loved We Sold Our Souls. So I feel like those are the two that I will try next. But it is real, like, great concept, terrible writing, or interesting concept, really well crafted, weird. Like, it was just weird and dark, and I was hooked. There are 2 chapters exclusively dedicated to giving birth. And I can't think of anything more horrific than that. Like, it was brutal. And the amount of research Grady Hendrix has done on this is astounding. Like, I absolutely could believe he had given birth and therefore was able to, like, fully process this. So, here's to all the women that helped him write this book. You did a great job. Well done. Again, that is doing nothing for you, and I can only apologise. Another mummy book. Again, no interest in having kids for myself. These books are really interesting in like how that taps into that. With the Fire on High was the last Elizabeth Acevedo book that I had to read. I've read everything else. I've given everything else 5 stars. And I was really worried about this one because it is about a teenage mum. And I just didn't think that was for me. But actually, it's really interesting because, again, you have this kind of like magical realism, the way food influences her life, the way she can influence food, the way that she talks to people about food and makes meals for people, food being such fuel for the soul, and then learning to stand on her own 2 feet and trust again and love again and looking after her baby girl. Like, it was just, again, really sweet, really wholesome. It felt like a warm hug. And then when this one had a happy ending, it just made me really happy. It was just great. And I think I started this quite early on in spring. So like the weather was rubbish, but the book was phenomenal. And just, yes, chef's kiss. Loved it. I'm going to need to start a new shelf. Okay. One that genuinely surprised me in how much I loved this was the first of 2 non-fictions on this list. Just Ignore Him by Alan Davis. Now, Alan Davis, you will have seen on QI. He was Jonathan Creek in the murder mystery series way back when that I adore. He is a very, very funny stand-up comedian who was sexually assaulted as a child. Not information I had going into this. And this book is so interesting, not only because he's got such a way with words, like clearly a very funny, very clever man, but just the idea of how he was pit against his siblings and how there was like this sibling rivalry created between him and them so that his dad could continue to control him. The idea that all of his trauma would have been visible were his mother still alive to help him, and actually why her death and what happened to him has formed him as an adult and his relationship with his family and how he can talk to his family about these things and then also feels like he can't talk to them about these things because of the way it happened and the shame involved. And the idea of like, I thought this was going to be about him just being like a naughty little schoolboy and like his shenanigans and what he got up to and how contentious that was between him and his dad. And the fact that it was this like really sad, empathetic, beautiful thing from a guy who we all just see as like that silly guy on QI who like Stephen Fry and Sandy Toksvig roast on a regular basis. Like it really was good. Like it was a really clever, really insightful, obviously authentic experience on something traumatizing that I would recommend to everybody. Like, I know we are so sick of celebrity memoirs at this point. Like, 80 come out every year. Their sales of them are on the decline. He has a new book that's just come out, which I think is literally called White Stand Up. And again, I'm really interested to pick that up because I wonder if, again, it's going to look at his career, because it barely touches his career. It talks about how he started in comedy and why he started in comedy, and the kind of like revolt against his dad and his dad's ideas for him and why that was the case, and kind of like separates him. So I'd be interested to see what he thinks in the new one. But if you are going to pick up a celebrity memoir in 2026, please make it this one. It's so good. It's so good. And if you really enjoyed I'm Glad My Mum Died as like a different perspective, an adult perspective on something that wasn't the same kind of abuse, but is still parental abuse, really interesting. Yeah, really, really dark. Beautiful, but so dark. And then the other non-fiction is also by a comedian. We have Billy No Mates, How I Realised Men Have a Friendship Problem by Max Dickens. Now, I had just finished reading a non-fiction book by another male author and another male celebrity that I did not vibe with. So I went into this expecting to hate it. And actually, I really liked the way this male author takes accountability for what he's experiencing and why he's experiencing it. So Max Dickens is engaged at the start of this book. He has proposed to his fiancée. He's really excited for the wedding. He doesn't have a best man. And that's a problem because he's got a year to find one. And in that year, he explores how men have failed to make friendships and why friendships in men fail. Because he starts with like his close group of mates who meet up for a beer and realizes he has nothing in common with any of them except for the fact they meet up and have a beer. Their relationship statuses are different places. Their jobs, their outlooks, their personalities, their morals, their beliefs are all in very different places. And the whole time he's thinking, well, actually, he finds making friendships with women so much easier because women cultivate friendships in a very different way. And he goes on to like talk to like scientists and sociologists and looks at like the theory behind why that is, all whilst actively looking at different ways that he could make friends strong enough to be his best man, and then why he relies on his female friendships and how he abandons female friendships in lieu of male friendships, and why that might be. It's really, really interesting. But again, written by a comedian, so it has those levity moments, it has those serious moments. And I feel like every man ever on the planet needs to read this, because we keep talking about this male loneliness epidemic and how that needs to be like a woman's problem because men are so lonely without women. Yeah, because none of you like each other. None of you hold each other to account. None of you want to spend time with each other. You rock up, have a beer and don't talk for 2 years and you think that's friendship, or you hope that's friendship, so that when it actually comes to a big old event like your wedding day, that's going to solve the problem. And it doesn't, and here's why. And I really liked that he took accountability, whereas like this other previous one just didn't. Like not until like towards the end, and it was like a journey. This one, the journey had happened. And even at the beginning, he was socially aware of what the problems were and how he'd created them. Yeah, let's hold men accountable. And also help them find friends that actually will support and care about them. Because apparently that's something they're not able to do. Yeah, I'm happy to pick up anything by Max Dickens because that was a fun read. And also a bit ranty, I can only apologise. One of the first books I read of the year made me cry. Straight up wept. Was an absolute mess. And then I proceeded to talk about it on a live show with Abby and Becca. And I think Olivia joined us for this one as well. And just, wow. I don't have the words to describe what this book made me feel. I refuse to watch the film because I don't think it's going to make me feel the way the book made me feel. This trilogy is so clever and so beautiful and so freaking sad that I can't help but recommend it. So this follows a new Earth, a colonized Earth, but there are only men. And all the men can hear each other's thoughts. And obviously, as previously stated, men don't like each other. This isn't a nice, happy utopia. This is a really dark, brutal world. And our main character, whose name I've forgotten because I read it so long ago. What is his name? What is his name? What is his name? Todd. There we go. Thank you. Todd is raised by these two guys who are kind of outsiders in this and have done everything they can to protect him and train him to survive in this brutal world. And then they are killed. and they are killed for a specific reason that I'm not going to get into because I don't want to spoil the book. And Todd is chased into the wilderness. And in the wilderness, he stumbles across a spaceship that has crashed with a young girl on it who has just lost her parents, and he can't hear her thoughts. And then that just throws more spanners into the works. And it is such an interesting look at patriarchy and toxic masculinity and cruelty in a dystopia that just, you think it's going to stop. You think the train has come off the tracks, so it must come to a stop eventually, and then it just doesn't. For 3 books, it just keeps plowing on, regardless of the tracks, regardless of the damage it's doing on its way, and emotionally traumatizing you at every step. Trigger warnings for 1,000 different things, but the things that made me cry was definitely animal death and animal cruelty. My God. And just the world building, how it's crafted. It really tickled me because Abby and Becca, it took them reading it, I think, for a second time to realise this wasn't Earth as we know it, that it was like a different planet. I can't remember if it was Abby and Becca, it was definitely Becca. I realised that like immediately because it had 2 moons, and that just threw Star Wars into the mix, and I was like, well, this is obviously a new colonised planet. And like it has like themes of racism and slavery because it has these like bark people that are treated so poorly, but they are so at one with the earth and understand how the planet works and see this, being able to see each other's thoughts as a positive thing, not a negative thing. Oh my God, there's so much in this series that genuinely, if you like any kind of like Hunger Games level dystopia or otherworldly sci-fis, brutal stories, violence, oh my God, it has it all. It has it all, and you will love it. And then the last one is Out There Screaming, which was edited and curated by Jordan Peele, but it's an anthology of new black horror. This was gifted to me by Olivia so long ago that it has faded, and I can only apologise. I genuinely don't know why I have spent so long avoiding this book. Other than the fact that I'm not a massive fan of anthologies, I love the idea of an anthology. I love the idea of picking up a book and trying a variety of different authors. But the problem is they're curated in a way where if you don't like one of them, chances are there's going to be quite a few in there that you don't like. And if you love them, great, you're going to love them all. This is one of those ones where I loved them all. Varying degrees, varying interests, none of them felt the same. All of them looked at really interesting themes within the genre of horror and within the worlds that they were creating, and none of them you were okay at the end. Like none of them you were, oh, that makes sense. All of it was brutal and dark and really interesting. And right at the beginning in the foreword, Jordan Peele talks about how he likes the idea of an oubliette. Now, I love the word oubliette anyway, and it is basically a hole that people are left in, and that for everybody, they have their own oubliette, this world, this darkness that they sink into, that they cannot get out of. And obviously with an oubliette, the skinnier you get, the more you fall down, and there is no coming back up. So it's really dark that was the vague theme he gave these authors, and that each one of them, this thing that they fear, their deep darkness, is explored in a short story. So good. So good. Like, for any kind of horror fan out there who wants to try a little bit of something different. Again, we've got themes of LGBT, disability rep, and BIPOC rep, obviously. It's so interesting and dark and twisted that you can do all of them in a day, or you can do one at a time. I did like some as audiobooks and some as like proper reading, and I just, oh yes, if you need to pick up a horror in 2026, make it this collection of short stories because it's so good. It's so good. So there we go. There is my 10 favourite reads of 2025. I cannot articulate how much I loved these books, but this was my attempt. So let me know in the comments down below what was your favourite book or 3 favourite books of 2025, because I always struggle. You could not ask me to rank these. I could not. There are some that would be higher than others, but still, like a 1, 2, 3 favourites, couldn't do it. So feel free to drop a couple of favourites or books that you want me to pick up in 2026 that you think, based on this, that I will absolutely adore. I love hearing your recommendations. Make sure to check out the links down below because I've got a Patreon now. Treat yourself to something from Waypoint Books because it supports me and my content. And most importantly, have a nice day.